How y'all
Hey
doing
everybody.
today? I
Oh,
just wanted to make sure we
you
were
go for it.
clear, Locus. Man, you look so good. You caught me off guard with your glasses, man. You looking amazing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, listen, I had to make sure that I was looking my best for the finals here, and I'm sure that these players are also looking their best getting into it here with the finals for the Kentucky High School Athletics Association. The finals here, getting into it with these teams.
Yeah, we're getting into it between Thomas Nelson Gaming and Henry Clay Blue. Starters on the Thomas Nelson side looking like the Simple Sweeper, Waffle Himmer, Mongongo, the second one, and the Forge God. I wonder if that guy likes Orn. Sub on there is going to be Blood Raven 38, and then Henry Clay Blue.
I actually think it's
Eli.
Lafayette Generals we've got on the other side here. If
Oh, yeah.
my info is correct here,
Did I
there
get the
should be
wrong side there?
Sir Jubes, Killaquary, Metro Mina, 1000, and Lemony Limesy, I believe. Yeah. So it's
Okay,
going to be
sweet, sweet,
Lafayette
sweet.
Generals there.
And then the other side will be that team that you just had
Yeah,
given
and
love
then
to.
still Thomas Nelson. Yeah, so you've got that. We've got the picks and bans coming through here quickly. These teams, they're knows what they want to pick as well. Got the Seraphine Misfortune on one side for the bot lane and the Viego jungle, and on the other side the Darius probably going to the top lane, and Syndra safe pick for mid, and that Ezreal, that safe AD carry as well.
Safety, the name of the game on that red side so far, but a lot of AoE lockdown.
Never pick a fight you can't win.
Power getting locked into that blue side. You know, the Viego jungle is just so unparalleled when left unchecked. So would love to see somebody with some great presence come out from the red squad, somebody to try to keep pace with or disrupt what that Viego tries to get his team rolling on.
Absolutely. They're still looking for that mid top lane here on the side of Thomas Nelson. We'll have to see who they go for. I guess that Seraphine could still be flexed into the mid lane. Talk about it a lot, but in those first 3 picks, it's always nice to have some of those more flexible champs so that you don't give away too much about your draft in those early phases. That safe pick here, Orn. This means that Darius is either going to the jungle. One of these 2 picks is going to the jungle, probably this Darius or this Orn. I personally love Orn jungle as like a pick that I play in solo queue and stuff. It's nice to have a lot of presence on the map. You don't have to recall much. You just forge yourself a couple ruby crystals as you're going along. The clear is actually pretty nice with some of the new jungle items and such.
I like that.
So I'm assuming that's still going to be a Darius top and Orn jungle, but could be the other way around as well.
So the Darius just providing so much pressure to any top lane matchup kind of does make it a bit more difficult for him to find the same success that he's basically guaranteed in the top lane in the jungle. So it would be a bit riskier to Ornn as well, just guaranteed levels as those waves crash in, not as guaranteed if he is forced on that jungle role. So we'll see if that is the choice. But Ezreal Karma, amazing poke bot lane locked in, and it's going to be the Darius jungle Ornn top. So going to be a nice little mix-up that they have there. They could still swap it. It's not going to be fully locked in yet. They could still make that swift around, but looks like that will be the option for the generals. And then on the other side of things, we got the Malphite, the big dive, Viego, Victor, Chaos Storm, Misfortune, Bullet Time, Seraphine. Oh my God. Run away. That's a death ball.
Yeah, you do not want to team fight that team at all. They have not the greatest disengage here on the side of the red team here either. They've got like the Syndra E, and that's about it. Ezreal shift and then the Karma movement speed. So they're going to have to try and see if they can play around objectives and maybe make some picks here rather than trying to full-on team fight there. I like the Malphite pick in the top lane for the side of Thomas Nelson here, but it seems like that was kind of a pick to deal with the Darius in the top lane. I feel like if we're just looking at tanks in the top lane, they're probably going to farm up here, and I do like the Ornn in the later game a lot more than that Malphite. So I think that's a little bit of a draft win here for Lafayette when you're looking at that top lane matchup.
Getting rewarded in the flexibility of the flex picks. Love to see it. And we have the small 3-minute delay before we're able to catch these guys on the rift. So Really exciting stuff as we do get into the game one here of this best of three between Thomas Nelson Gaming and the Lafayette Generals. Very exciting stuff. I know that we just had an amazing Rocket League set before this, so excited for the stage that has been set, and I know these athletes are itching and raring to go.
Yeah. We'll have to see with this Darius jungle. This isn't a pick that I've seen a ton in the new kind of jungle, but I can imagine having some pretty strong ganks with that E if you're able to make your way in potentially behind one of these laners, behind that Victor potentially in that mid lane. Dealing with a Darius Syndra like in a mid jungle kind of skirmish sounds like something that I wouldn't want to deal with in the early game. So we'll have to see what kind of plays they can make around the map.
Syndra and Ornn, really the only big disengage from this team that's going to be pressing W onto them from the Thomas Nelson side. So would love to see the Lafayette Generals really play safe and choose the correct time and pace at which to open this game up. If they let it explode too early and they let Viego get scrappy, they let Misfortune hit some nice rotations and pick people off, and that Malphite, of course, just the ever-looming threat in any darkness when he's off of that mini-map, going to be so important that the Generals really keep their wits about them, play around vision, not take too many risks when they know that Thomas Nelson are looking to call them out.
Yeah, something I always mention when talking about Viego as well is just that even when your team is very behind, if you have a Viego on your team and you're able to start stealing some of the high value targets on the enemy team, you can suddenly turn around a game that you're quite far behind in. And that is complemented so nicely with all of these big team fight ults that they have on the side of Thomas Nelson, where you can kind of cheat some extra value if you're getting those big team fight ults on multiple carries or multiple members of the enemy team. So even if they do fall behind in the early game, I feel like they have a path forward in just, those big team fights, and it has to be Lafayette trying to play around that and avoid those team fights.
If the Thomas Nelson squad are able to line it up, they're gonna have an easy time knocking it down. But the side of the Generals, I mean, they do have some point and click deletion. They can really choose exactly who they want to have nullified from these fights, and then as well with the Karma mobility, just have some opportunity to head out and move around, reposition, put the shields onto a mass group of people before the engagements really come in, and try to just allow for people to scatter as much as possible. They do have some answers. It's going to be very important that they get these Ornn items in, that they start to scale up these levels on the Ezreal, and they does not fall behind from the massive pot shots that can come in from Misfortune.
Yeah, that's a great point there. Also, I think if Lafayette are able to catch Thomas Nelson without their ultimates, like you mentioned, that point-and-click deletion on the Syndra and on the Darius with both of their ultimates together, they can make some big picks and some big fights happen in those windows. But they'll have to see if they can find a way for Thomas Nelson to burn their ults without too many casualties on the side of Lafayette.
See our mid laner Mongongo getting called out for neglecting to use his stopwatch sometimes in lane, so I'd love to make sure that this Victor is able to get that safety and be able to use all the things in there. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you forget to pop a pot, you forget to hit that stopwatch, but if Camden and the squad from Thomas Nelson are able to keep all their buttons right, keep everything checked, they will be able to sit out of this as the Kentucky high school state finalists, the big winners, the winners of this tournament that has been going on through this past couple months. So love to see it. It's all on the line now. It's now or never as we jump on the rift for game one.
Summoner's Rift.
All right. Looks like Thomas Nelson just kind of grouping up here by the blue buff. I wonder if they'll move into the opposing jungle or whether they're just trying to catch somebody, getting a little bit greedy and trying to get vision on this blue buff.
Perhaps in scrims or some previous VOD experience, they saw that this is a very common invade from the Generals and trying to get a jump on it this time. But just an even spread coming across on that red team. They're not going to be looking for anything aggressive here, and it's just going to be a very even start to things. All darkness across all sides. and the minions are spawning, so let's get some money.
Absolutely. Ezreal starting with that tier. Imagine we'll see mostly farming down there in the bot lane until the junglers roam over. We'll have to see here. Both junglers are going to be starting their bot side. We'll probably be moving up from there. I don't imagine you want to gank an Ornn or a Malphite. I guess early when they're not super beefy yet, you might really get an advantage there. I'm interested to see how these junglers path here from the bot lane.
Yeah, it's going to be so crucial for these junglers to make the right choice early because of what kind of, you know, snowbally game this essentially can come down to being. They both have very similar points in the game that they're looking to reach at, like, very, you know, concise mid game, right? Well, to be late game is where both of these teams really hit their stride. So whoever's able to accelerate the team to that point and really start to edge out some advantages will be rewarded justly.
Yeah. Also, it's pretty brave here on Sir Jubes to throw down the Ornn against the Forge God. I imagine that the top laner here for Thomas Nelson has some good knowledge of that Ornn if you're going to take the time to name your account after him. So we'll have to see how that goes in the top lane.
Ornn is such a beefy champion. Stats feel like this guy cannot lose, and then sits there under his tower, forging, hammering away, having a good old time with some of the best voice lines in the entire cast. And oh wow, just love that character. What a great addition. Very, you know, in my opinion, overloaded when it comes to that CC. There's not many characters in the game that can keep up with the amounts of disrupt, disjoint, and knockup this guy can provide, and so reliably so. Like, it's just such a huge sweeping hitbox.
Absolutely. All right, Darius is finished his full clear here. He has taken all of his camps actually quite quickly, faster than the Viego here. Is hovering that top side. Maybe actually looking for a fight here against the Viego. He's going to try and get some vision. They are pinging out that Viego. Looks like Darius is going to have control over that crab.
Crab in the hands of the generals, and all things very even to start things out. We are seeing some farm advantages start to build up on the side of the generals, but just a very minute, minuscule advantage that is, only about 200 gold. And as this wave crashes into bot, maybe even just 100, all around, some great stuff coming out. I love to see a very even start to things, a very respectful start to things. Darius just walking through the lane here, just showing presence. And at good time as well, because the Viego is near, going to reset perfectly as well. Viego, assuming that possibly will be going to relieve the bot lane a little bit. But we'll see KHSAA actually walk across any vision, so hopefully this jungler is wise to the fact that this Darius has reset. Going to be just going back to power farming his lower side of the jungle now, while things just continue to stay at a very even pace.
Absolutely. I like the forge of that null magic mantle here from the Ornn. All of that hope from this Malphite. You can see he's out of mana, but he is healthy. He's just been spamming those Qs, that RP comment going on. Poking to the bot lane. Oh, they are going to force the flash out of the Karma. It's an advantage here for Thomas Nelson.
We've seen Lemony Limesy heat those combos a little bit too much, and yeah, that's eventually what forced out the flash. So that has called KHSAA over to the bot lane to try to add some pressure, some relief. But ultimately, just a little bit of information given away and no pressure really added. Still, the Karma on the ropes right now. Yeah, and that's why you're going to see this Darius actually help to push out the wave so that these laners can reset.
Making sure that wave gets into tower here. Ornn is trying for some more aggressive trades here. Has that cloth armor as well now. It's going to force that Malphite back, but we do have a duel here in the jungle. Looks like Darius was actually thinking about taking that fight, but is going to back off. Much lower health here.
All things considered, we sit very poised for both teams to reach what they want right now. I mean, it is still just the first 6 minutes of the game, but it doesn't seem like anybody's really interested in the scrap, like anybody's really interested in trying to make this a breakaway here in the first 10 minutes. So consider both teams honestly on a win condition with just letting things play out very smooth and nobody getting tested or tried in any real significant way here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like this is good for the side of Lafayette because they're scaling towards those late game Ornn items, and Ezreal's going to hit that 2-item power spike, and Syndra and Darius are going to get their ults. Like there's so much that's good for them to just be even moving into the later portions of the game. But so is, like, it's so much good for Thomas Nelson as well. Oh, we are going to see a gank here. Viego rolling through. Yeah,
Gank at the perfect.
too far up.
Yeah, and then just unfortunate for the Darius. Had an idea that Viego would be up here, but now playing with Death's Door and ultimately going to cross over that threshold. Going to be 2 kills donated to this top side of the map here. As I said, things are going to stay chill. That will definitely be some fuel to the fire for Thomas Nelson Gaming. This Viego going to be feeling very happy with reaping those rewards and getting to just put some pressure here in the top. Now going to feel very liberated to probably go and camp some of these bottom brushes, wait for some darkness, and then get a nice stun and layer the ultimates here with the bot lane to try to clean up a double kill. And we're seeing already the bot side of the map the path towards.
Yeah, and that Darius was just off of that level 6 mark as well at the start of that fight. Darius had an ult for that fight and was there a little bit earlier. It could have gone the other way. Just a game of inches, League of Legends here. Thomas Nelson taking that advantage.
It's kind of like a cascading effect from that bot lane pressure that the Darius added, while on the other side of things, the Simple Sweeper was able to just continue to power farm, was able to be in the top lane a little bit earlier, able to be there at level 6, whereas Darius shared a little bit of experience with the bot lane and spent time not only walking to the lane, but having to recall and, you know, all the tempo that kind of gets thrown away with that. Good job by the Simple Sweeper to keep that mind of where an advantage can be taken, even though it was against the tanky Ornn in the top lane.
Yeah, even in that bot lane gank, the fact that the Darius had to use the Ghost and Seraphine was able to just disengage. If Darius had that Ghost, he might have gotten up there just that little bit sooner and been able to save that Ornn. So yeah, you're totally right. These plays kind of butterfly effect forwards, and we're getting a scrap here in the mid lane. He is using this Ghost again, but the apprehend is not going to catch here.
And the only thing getting apprehended is the rest of the generals, as Viego was trying to get the work done with that Darius kit, but gonna jump back to the man of the hour, the Viego, and continue to add more and more creep score to this ballooning lead now, 1-0 and 2. Oh, the double kill from the Ezreal, 1,000 years!
Oh my goodness! Yeah, it was farming. It was still level 5 actually at the start of that. Was pushing to get that level 6 as fast as possible, and then yeah, got that, and the perfect lineup too. Getting both of them. You're happy with just one if you're Ezreal in that case. Getting both is incredible.
Highlight moment for the AD carry from the generals. Absolutely gorgeous work, lining that up, finding that once in a lifetime double kill there to get both of the points that the generals now have on the scoreboard there. Going to accelerate this Ezreal as well with the double buffs, and then continuing to just walk to that bot lane and be donated all this delicious farm that was stacked up. You see the wave was massive down there, and that Tiamat is going to help to clean that up so much. He's going to be able to stack the tier as well with that blue buff and just be at that 20-minute Ezreal, possibly at 17 minutes now.
And it looks like he is going towards that Ravenous for the first item here. Oh, we're getting another gank in the top lane. Ornn is going to be taken down here. Another kill given over to the Simple Sweeper. Ornn's had his flash all game, but hasn't actually had a place where he can really use it. It's just been kind of rough spots for these ganks.
If you can rinse and repeat it, do it. It's always going to be something that you can lean back towards as the Thomas Nelson Gaming squad to lock down this Ornn. It does only have, if the flash is down, that E to move out of things, but the flash has been up, so it's interesting to see that he has not gone for that opportunity. I know that sometimes it is better to hold on to that summoner spell as opposed to just blowing it on top of the engagement, but I feel like there's definitely a good time couple of times that this character could have flashed out, but as I say that, huge engagement going on to the bot lane. Will the Ezreal be able to clean this up though? Does have a killing spree now engaged and is going to be able to jump on down to the Seraphine. No red buff though, so cannot get the slow onto the Seraphine that did have to flash out of the response from 1000 here, who is becoming very difficult to manage. If you're looking for this Ezreal to have had a standout performance, you are very much happy with this so far.
Yeah, and if we're looking at champions that can kind of deal with, you know, that team fight style of play, Ezreal is a great one to do so. He can just kind of stay out of the range of those engage tools and just poke for as long as he can before starting that fight. The point where maybe that engage starts to look a lot less good on the side of Thomas Nelson.
All things considered, a nice gold lead starting to mount up for Thomas Nelson Gaming, but we see the win condition forming for the Generals. This Ezreal getting up and getting built, and then a level 14 Ornn supplying him with an upgrade to one of his items will just allow this Ezreal to start to take over front-to-back team fights and start to poke down anybody around objectives that will become undeniable. Nobody on the side of Thomas Nelson Gaming is going to want to deal with those shots. There's no true tank besides that Malphite, who's also going to be looking to go to the back side of things in. Darius with a great time gank there in the bottom lane as all the flashes were blown, but things starting to heat up. Rift Herald getting traded and getting dropped in the mid lane. The Syndra, one tap from taking the life of this Victor, but the Forge got over the wall with the Malphite ulti, scaring away the Syndra for the time being. No lives traded in that situation. Only Darius coming up 1-0 in the bot lane.
Yeah, for as beefy and kind of like lower damage as Malphite is, seeing one hop across a wall with an ultimate like that you're not expecting him to, is one of the most scary experiences in League of Legends, especially when you're that close to guaranteeing a solo kill there. A great presence from the Forge God to be where he needs to be and stop it after happening. Alright, both of these teams kind of just moving back, taking all of their camps, resetting, making sure that they've got all the gold in their pockets that they are actually spent on items and not sitting in their pockets. Ezreal completing that Ravenous Hydra is going to start stacking that up alongside his tier. It's going to be a scary Ezreal once he hits that 2-item mark here.
2 items are approaching in. See that tier also very stacked up for the time that has passed on the clock. Going to be a very scary Ezreal to deal with, but you also look at the Misfortune farming amazingly. Kraken Slayer already in the inventory. You can see where the gold advantage lies in the Ezreal, in that longsword, and you know, just the type of gold I assume is still inside of the inventory. Should be a little bit more in there. I'm not seeing translated, but into any items. But for the time being, everything just going very well for the Generals. They're able to weather this storm, and like you said, getting that Ornn to that critical moment of being able to supply so much hidden gold to the team is crucial, and they're starting to leverage that. It's already a double digit. He just passed over to the full hands, got 10 on the years for Sir Jubes up there. When he hits level 13, becomes a teenager, it's going to be crazy for the rest of the squad.
That's such a good way to describe it. I've never heard it described like that. Alright, another attempt here at a solo kill, and is going to flash out. But that's awesome if you're Syndra. Your ult is going to come up way before that Victor's flash is going to come up again. So some great pressure here. Darius's Ghost coming up as well. If they can get that lane to a point where Victor has to step up, that could be a... Oh, I was about to say, could be an opportunity for that gank.
Oh, all things are working in the way of good for both teams, honestly. You know, you see this 2,000 gold lead side of Thomas Nelson Gaming, and whenever they choose to make a group effort towards something, they will be able to reap the rewards of that gold lead. But for the time being, still opting to keep things in the lane phase. Darius with the upper hand on this gank pathing, but it's going to be the simple sweeper coming around the back side of things. No Ghost now onto the Darius. Sir Jubes and the Forge God trading in the top lane, and waves just continuing to crash underneath this turret is always a good thing for Jubes.
Yeah, both of these junglers hovering around their bot side as this dragon will be spawning in a minute's time here. Lafayette will really want to keep stacking these dragons, but it's going to be scary when you know that you're dealing with all of these team fight ultimates coming out from Thomas Nelson. Everyone going to reset and make sure they have all the gold possible for this potential fight at the dragon.
Dragon, the timer, now approaching the 30-second mark, and that's why we're seeing the synchronized backing from the TNG squad. Going to be the bot lane, now looking to head back with the Malphite already rotated, does not have the TP, so made the call to abandon the top wave now. Will Sir Jubes be wise to this? Does Sir Jubes know what time to expect this Malphite back? Really begin to push this wave out, because right now it looks like things are getting a little bit frozen.
Yeah, and without that TP on the Ornn. Oh, great flash out of Metro Mina here in the mid lane. No Malphite ult for this dragon fight, but no Syndra flash either.
And no Ornn, which is such an important thing for the generals. That's why they're possibly looking to be a bit scrappier here on the side, but that is too many members of the Thomas Nelson Gaming squad. There is no vision around that, which I mentioned in the pre-game would be so important for the Lafayette Generals to cultivate before they make any plays. And that's why there are now 5 members enjoying this Ocean Drake, stacking these regenerative properties of its scales, and now the Hextech Drake will spawn, and that will be the soul here of game 1.
Yeah, and you could see there Sir Jubes was thinking about walking down to the dragon and then started walking back up to top lane. Is actually walking back to base now to finish up an item. It's a little bit more clean team play on the side of Thomas Nelson, knowing that they need that top laner down there in the bot lane for the dragon.
These Hex gates are going to make for definitely an increased pace of rotational gameplay coming out. People hopping around, making things happen for themselves will become a lot easier.
Yeah, I've actually enjoyed this this Darius jungle pick. It hasn't found the plays that it's needed to. It's looking for a gank here against the Malphite in the top lane. Oh, but the ult out to the side is going to dodge the Ornn ult. And the rest of Thomas Nelson is there to help out the Malphite and to secure this Rift Herald.
A Rift Herald that is very wise pickup. They team there by the generals, not even wise to it, and the Darius is gonna Hexgate into danger. You are on the wrong side of things, ghosting behind enemy lines. Is this warlord of the Noxian army? But there we go. Going to be headed back to safety. Really scary situation there, though, having to go between the turrets.
Does buy some time for the rest of his team while a couple of the members of Thomas Nelson kind of chase after him, and he's actually going to take even a jungle camp on the way out here. Even looking for a dive down here. Seraphine is going to be there. MF is there as well, but does get the pull. Taking a lot of damage here, though, from this MF, who is just standing tall, dealing the damage. Is going to pop the ult here. Ezreal does manage to get the trade kill and is regenning so much in this fight. He's staying alive. Oh my goodness, Ezreal stayed alive for so long there, but they aren't able to actually kill the Seraphine off of it. And the Viego with the Rift Herald, turning that into a kill in the mid lane as well. So that's 4 for the side of Thomas Nelson, and just the 1 in return for Lafayette.
Things are exploding in the favor of Thomas Nelson Gaming here as we cross the 20-minute mark. That Ezreal was supposed to become the ever-looming threat that was building up, and just like that, they find the angle to shut him down. And it's going to be on the back of some great rotational play by the Forge God, really making sure to get the most value out of his Malphite roams. And all around the board right now, we're seeing a group effort as the bounties start to build up on the TNG squad, and the gold lead begins to balloon.
Yeah, that's exactly what you mentioned in the post-game. Lafayette had to try and stop this explosion from happening for as long as possible, but it might just be starting here. Ezreal just a little bit away from that 2-item power spike as well. Looking towards that Muramana with that fully stacked tier there. See if they can make anything happen once that those 2 items do come out.
so much strength across these rosters. Love to see this contentious game one starting to open up in the favor of either team. I mean, it's lucky in the hands of Thomas Nelson that it's them right now, but either team could have really walked away with this edge from what we saw early on. So great job and great mind by the TNG squad to continue to press that objective, try to be the ones that could dictate this pace, because thus far they are getting rewarded with it. Whoa, what a huge double up shot there to hit onto the Ezreal, literally taking half of his health. Collector already in tow here for this Misfortune. She is going to have such a good time with the bullet time later on, but once again, the ultimate by the Malphite doing a great job to evade the initial knockup and damage, but the shutdown still going the way of Calictuary.
Yeah, that's what you need if you're this Darius. That Malphite is going to be down. Does not have TP either, so might not be there for this dragon fight. You do see that well, it shows an Ocean Dragon there in the top left corner, but I'm pretty sure we're getting a Hextech Drake. That might be a spectator bug here, because we do see those Hex Gates out on the map, so we are going to see that Hextech Soul.
The Hextech Soul honestly benefiting the General so well if they were able to get it on the other side of things. Thomas Nelson Gaming also benefiting immensely from those stacking buffs that it is granted. So many auto attackers that are going to be able to use those, and a cross map trade here from the Generals. I love to see it. There's objective bounties on the map, so these are all very much worth the time and concerted effort, just like that. So the Drake falling on the bot side of the map.
I like that a lot from Thomas Nelson, saying, you know what, we're actually not going to be at the Dragon in time, so let's just all group around this top lane, getting that objective bounty, and they're all just going to head out through that Hex Gate and get out of danger.
Everything's smooth, everything's safe, and everything looking to be very much on the same page from these teams. They're all moving well together. Communication lines are very much open. And regardless of the outcome of game one, that's exactly what needs to stay active. You have to be chatting. You have to find jokes in the madness, and find a smile in the stress. It's so important in keeping that mental right as you try to move forward and get this best of 3 under your belt. We literally just saw on the Rocket League side of things a reverse sweep. So it's not impossible to lose a couple of games, to lose that lead initially and start to rally behind the strengths that you have. Maybe it wasn't the strengths that you thought you'd show up with, but finding that new niche, finding that new wave to ride is so essential in these series. That is what we might get to see from the Generals here, as the gold lead has been stifled from going any further from this 4,000 for about 4 minutes now.
Yeah, something I'd like to point out here is we actually didn't see that Muramana come in as that second item from the Ezreal. We're seeing a Spear of Shojin coming out from him, giving him a little bit more health, and then of course that lower cooldown on all of those basic abilities. We're going to be seeing lots of Qs, lots of arcane shifts. We're going to see that Ezreal slip around and do lots of perk damage.
Shojin just getting reintroduced here to the preseason. Love to see it. Ghost. I love to see this as well, because this is a great engage to come out, so that's why we're seeing the flash come out from the Simple Sweeper. But in response, the bullet time sprayed and splayed across so many members of the enemy team. Shutdown though going the way of the Syndra, and the re-engage is here. The cavalry has arrived. The second one will slay 1,000, but on the other side of things, a great stopwatch to come out from the Syndra to deny any type of response kill. That is a 2-for-1 going the way of the Generals, even though they're sat behind in gold. The Orin is now level 14, and they're going to provide so much value in Orin items.
Yeah, we're seeing the Ludens upgraded here on the Syndra. Ezreal actually not even having an item that can be upgraded here. It's actually interesting because we don't know what item this Ezreal is going to go next. You need that Mythic to be able to have something to upgrade. And if we're seeing a tier item as the next one, we might not see an item that can be upgraded on this Ezreal for a long while.
Great point, yeah. Probably going to be close to 30-31 minutes before Ezreal has an item in which he would like to get those extra stats added on. Interesting to see if Thomas Nelson Gaming will be able to find any significant footing to try to close out the game before getting to that point. But for the time being, Generals doing an amazing job at starting to disrupt what Thomas Nelson Gaming had built up. Speaking of disrupt, Mongogo in the bot lane getting called out.
Yeah, we're going to use that Zanya's here, but it is not going to matter. Not even using the ultimate. It is not necessary. It's going to take that kill, but Thomas Nelson, with a lot of members there in the bot lane, they are going to start this Baron. Have a lot of damage for it, but other members of the Generals are here. Oh, a great Seraphine ult to disrupt that Ornn ult and stop it from happening, but still that giant knockup into the stun. You see a lot of damage done to the side of Thomas Nelson here. That MF is low. Oh, she is going to end up popping here. A little bit too greedy here from Thomas Nelson, going for that Baron. 3 members lost. The Generals are going to turn around and try and take it here.
Baron, the MVP of that fight for the Generals. The debuff just doing so much work, and the mind of the rotation from the top laner and the Ezreal there to try to threaten this. But as I say that, the Baron has been turned on by the Generals, and that has kind of baited them into this bad altercation here with Thomas Nelson Gaming. Luxury gonna get the kill on to Seraphine in the back line, but the shutdown of the Syndra going the way of Mongongo, going to be responding from that patch down in the bot lane. But what a huge Darius ulti. That thing is so long on the reset, and it was still up for the Darius to get another kill here. This is becoming a massive ramp up from the jungler of the Generals, and it's catching up in huge ways here to the pace that was set by the simple sweeper.
Yeah, man. Baron had a front row seat to all the action there. Both teams going for that and not managing to make it work. This game has become so scrappy, and it's so exciting to see these fights between these two teams. Lafayette doing exactly what you mentioned in the pregame, you know, trying to survive through those ultimates, and then, you know, make things happen in between with those re-engages.
Yeah, that was the storm weathered, and then a little bit of rebaiting going on. Unfortunately, the Baron looking too juicy, that big purple worm. So appetizing for the Generals, but ultimately kind of left them to give away a bit of that lead that they were starting to mount up. The tempo, though, not given away. They have the inside track on this Hextech Drake. They're going to pull it out, make it a bit more difficult to steal with Chaos Storm or anything over that wall, and I think that we will see it go the way of the Generals. Great smite by the Darius, and we're sitting dead even in Drakes, sitting almost dead even in gold when you factor in those ornaments, and things are going on.
Absolutely. Both teams now with 2 of those dragons, meaning we won't see that soul for at least another 10 minutes here. We're gonna have to scrap over these last 2 dragons. Yeah, the Hextech Soul you mentioned being so good for both these teams. That chain lightning being applied to all of the poke that both of these teams have is something that neither team is gonna want to have to deal with. You see that Ornn tick up to 15 here is going to provide that Ornn item to the Darius. We've got 3 Ornn items here on the side of Lafayette. Still curious what this Ezreal is building towards here. We are seeing the Kindle Gem as well as that here, which looks kind of like a Fimbulwinter? Or maybe an Archangels? There's a couple of different things he could be building right now. Is building that chain vessel.
Yeah. There's a lot of options open with these components that 1000 has put in that inventory. I'd be interested to see what's going to come up, but we see the Triforce in Calictuary's hands being upgraded. That is going to provide tons of damage, and now even more so, what an ever-looming threat this cat is. Force of nature as well. Just continue to be swift, agile in these fights, and try to get to that back line, blow some people up and find some resets.
Alright, Lafayette are going to be the ones here pushing through the mid lane, taking a little bit of poke here from the Victor and the Seraphine. And again, have to be so careful to not get caught with any of these engage ults on the side of Thomas Nelson. They are playing it slow here, which is good on their side. We'll have to see what happens in the next few minutes here, whether both these teams are just okay to, you know, just farm up until that next dragon, or whether they try and scrap a little bit. We're going to control vision around the Baron here.
Baron being threatened here, but with the type of team fight that the Thomas Nelson Gaming squad has, Lafayette Generals do not want to bait themselves into this corner with that debuff spread across the team. It would just spell, you know, might as well just press /FF if you want to do that, because the Thomas Nelson Gaming squad will be able to come in with those huge AoE ultimates and just really do whatever they want. That would be quick end to this game. That's why we're seeing the Generals just get vision, try to bait out a mistake, a hasty mistake from the Thomas Nelson squad, and then backing out and gonna probably rinse and repeat this exact same formula.
We do have the answer on that item from the Ezreal. It is going to be the Frosty Gloves here. That Frostfire Gauntlet on the side of the Ezreal. This is actually a great idea,
Yeah.
and I didn't even think about it. Adding those slows onto these Qs that he's going to be throwing out to kind of stop that engage and to kind of give them another disengage option, a little bit more CC to try and, you know, extend these fights, get away from those giant teamfight ults to start out.
This Ezreal is gonna be a slippery friend to try to keep down here in these fights. Just providing so much utility with the Tiamat and those frozen zones that you see are starting to lay across the map. Huge survivability as well in the tank stats between the Ravenous and that Frosty. So keeping things fresh, keeping things as preseason as we like to see them, keeping us on our toes. Very beautiful game that they have crafted for us to get to enjoy here. If you are in the chat right now, show some love for your squad, because things are really about to open up here. We're cresting the 33-minute mark, exactly where these two teams want to be. Items looking amazing in the inventories, and I can smell a team fight brewing around this next Hextech Drake.
Yeah, we have a 2k gold difference between these two teams at the 33-minute mark. That is something you don't get to see very often. We don't usually have this close of games, but we'd love to see it. Darius trying to make something happen in the mid lane before this dragon. We're just going to back off, make sure that they have control over the pit, and that Thomas Nelson are going to be the ones that have to make something happen around this dragon.
Oh, the dragon is here. Unfortunate for this dragon, he thought he might get to maybe take a nap in the river, enjoy this little cove, but no, he just wakes up to getting pounded in the face by the Generals, and that's a little bit of exactly what the Thomas Nelson Gamer were looking for. They have now a great angle here to try to contest this dragon. You see how respectful the Generals are playing around this pit, because they know that when that go mode is pressed by the TNG squad, that they are in for sure danger.
We're doing a little bit of a dance here. Both teams moving forward and back, playing a little game of chicken, trying to bait out this ultimate from the Malphite without it causing too much stress on the side of their team. They are trying to poke here, and you can see the health bars on the side of Thomas Nelson are slowly draining a little bit. This Ezreal putting out a good amount of damage, but it's slow going for sure.
This Ezreal loves this situation, just able to continue to threat, poke, and prod, but there is the Ocean Drake regen finally coming in, and that's why we're seeing the Darius try to find an opportunity here. Ornn going to sound the horn, and that is the call for the team to advance. Unstoppable is the Darius as the huge explosion pops onto the Victor there, and that is kind of the retreat sign for Thomas Nelson Gaming, but the Generals continuing to press forward. The Generals gonna apprehend the Forge God and try to lock him down. Gonna have to ult out for the time being, and that's going to be the Generals taking the fight, taking the territory, and possibly taking the dragon.
Oh, and Metro Mina here is going to take out that Seraphine. Stepped a little bit too far forward, trying to get some of that poke, trying to reclaim a little bit of territory. Let's get some vision on this dragon, but it is going to go to the side of Lafayette here. And they played that perfectly. They played so respectfully, like you mentioned, making sure that they, you know, didn't take too aggressive of a stance and get ulted by that Malphite. And then managed to pop that Victor without the Malphite even being in position to make an ult happen. They pulled the trigger before Thomas Nelson was ready for it.
Ornn was focused so heavily in this game. Sir Jubes absorbed so much pressure, and then we look across the scoreboard at what it really was able to do for the Thomas Nelson Gaming squad, and unfortunately, it didn't stop this Ornn from getting to his points of power. The Darius is now able to run over the Viego as well, which is such a scary situation for the Thomas Nelson Gaming squad. Anytime that it's even a 2 versus 1 in this Darius, against this Darius, it's going to be so scary for the squad. They're setting up a bait here. The apprehend just a little bit short, but they're still on go mode.
Yeah, it does try and make that happen. They popped. The Shirelia's there. But now they're actually in a position where if they try and start this Baron, all of the members of Thomas Nelson are here. We're seeing another little dance here between these two teams. I do know that Ornn is in the bush.
The wave states are looking amazing from Thomas Nelson Gaming squad as well. I know that the chat has been showing love to their coach all day, but that is the discipline that you love to see, even when behind, making sure that these waves are in your advantage. And this is the fight to come out from Thomas Nelson that could possibly get them right back in this game. There is the ultimate to the backline. Metro Mina gonna explode, and this is Sir Jude's all alone amongst 4. You cannot do any type of damage here. That is the huge retaliation kill, though, onto the victor from Kiliktuary. Going to be trying to stack up these bleeds and these opportunities for the Darius to pop off, but for the time being, Thomas Nelson has weathered the storm, and they've won a huge fight. Shutdown gold straight into the hands of the MF.
Yeah, and that's huge. They are going to get this Baron here. 1,000 still alive on the Ezreal. I'm just going to try and shove out some waves here, try and make sure that these lanes are in not a great state for Thomas Nelson to be able to push with those Baron creeps. Doesn't have a lot of time to do so. Wow, this game is really back and forth. The last Dragon going to Lafayette, the Baron now going to Thomas Nelson. I'll have to see how Lafayette kind of weather this storm with that Baron buff.
We're gonna probably see 3 and 3 Drakes on each side, with the wave states just favoring Thomas Nelson Gaming with the Baron buff. They will most likely easily be able to clean up that second stack of the Hex Tech. So both of our teams will be playing around that soul point to try to grab an advantage, because they're both sitting so buffed up and steroided up from these dragons that they've been able to grab, from all the farm and gold. And we see the inventories are starting to get maxed out from. Things are going to be on very even footing as we move into now the late game here. 40-minute mark crossing, and I don't know who I can give it to. At the end of the day, they're just both very proficient in each of the style of play that they have to execute. It's going to be on whoever can just get the priority, get the proactivity to come out.
Yeah, absolutely. The Ezreal build, I think, has been really, really cool, but without having the Muramana and also without having a Cyrilda's or some armor pen item, it's felt like he hasn't been able to make too much happen in these fights. That Malphite kind of gets in front of him to tank all of those Qs, doesn't end up taking a whole lot of damage. Odds are we aren't going to see any armor pen until the final item on this Ezreal, which might be tough for the side of Lafayette here.
There is a lot of time that you need to get a full item inventory, and if Thomas Nelson are going to allow the Ezreal to get to that spot, we have yet to see. But a little bit of just a visual bug real quick. We're right back into the mix of things. 40-minute mark finally being crossed now, and 30 seconds until this all-important Hex Tech Soul spawns for the Generals. But on the other side of things, 0.3 of the 4 needed for the Thomas Nelson Gaming squad, and that's why you're seeing them already just camp and this brush, just wait for somebody to be over aggressive. Everybody though pushing the top wave here.
This look like they're almost handshaking this soul. Oh no, sorry, we're gonna go to 3 and 3 like you mentioned earlier. You got mixed up on who had all the dragons. They are allowing that one to go over and trying to make a play here happen in the top lane. Only 2 members needed from Thomas Nelson to take down that dragon. And the Malphite is going to start and engage here with that 4-item MF, shooting the ultimate. It's going to do so much damage here, and they have no way to deal damage to this Malphite. Darius does step forward from the ult, but it does not happen. But the Syndra does take down the MF with that flash into the ultimate.
What was given? Was it too much? so much expended for one kill onto a simple MF, and on the other side of things, a lot of AoE spells still to be accessed by the Thomas Nelson squad. They're able to pick off one, they're able to pick off another one in response. Sir Jubes now falling, and that is so many members taken off of the map for a substantial time. 45 seconds still on that Syndra, a whole minute on Sir Jubes. Could this be the game-ending push if the Thomas Nelson squad are able to rally behind it?
Yeah, that Muramana finally getting completed from this Ezreal. Man, these fights have just been so back and forth. That last one, they just didn't have the damage to deal with the Malphite.
Oh,
is actually going to
no.
go in again. 1,000 stepping too far forwards. Does have the flash and the arcane shift, but isn't going to be able to get a second arcane shift out. And they are moving into the base here as Thomas Nelson. Also going to take down the Darius here. It looks like this Malphite not caring at all about the tournaments. Or sorry, not the tournaments, the turrets. And will be at least an hit here for Thomas Nelson.
Going crazy out here to try to close things out. This is a monolith of a Malphite. This man cannot be stopped. Everything is just a little bit of a poke, a little bit of a prod to the massive health bar that he has. Gonna have the ultimate up in time again to layer it with the second one to be able to grab the rest of the kills that they need to secure game one here. It's going to be nobody left on the side of the generals to stop this push, and that is the Nexus finally going down in favor of Thomas Nelson Gaming for game one.
What a back and forth game we just had. 43-minute game just about, and we didn't even get to see a dragon soul. I mean, that's how you know a game is close. You get 6 dragons on the board without any of them actually being that soul dragon. I think that could have easily gone either way for either of these teams. I'm excited to see how things go in game 2.
Yeah, that was an absolute banger. Thank you so much to our teams for allowing us to catch that game one, because I only know that they're going to bring even more heat, even more clean fights, and just amazing drafts like we saw there into game 2, possibly game 3. We're gonna have to bring it to a quick break before we get to that point. I'm gonna need some water because I was jumping out of my chair screaming at these skirmishes and scraps, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello everyone, welcome back. We're still here in the action with the amazing Kentucky esports athletes, bringing us this League of Legends Grand Finals, which after game 1 has left us all needing more. That was so close, so contentious, literally riding between a couple of moments to bring it to a massive win for the Thomas Nelson Gaming team. So very much on the Lafayette Generals here to choose something that they can easily pull off and get themselves a point on this board, bring us to that best of 3 final moment, the championship rounds that we have in front of us if they're able to do so.
Man, I would love to see a third game between these two teams. After that first one being so close, so back and forth, oh man, I want to see it here between these two teams. You mentioned early in that first game that just that butterfly effect, right? One little change between these two teams can mean so much, and both of those teams still keeping it so close. These bans coming through very quick here.
Syndra being taken off the table there. You know that was a big pick to come out from Metro Mina in the mid lane. So that will be, I love Braum, one of my favorite champions in the game. Such amazing utility, big CC, amazing voice lines, just such a friendly spirit. And it will be that Freyordian defender locked in for the support role.
Yeah, and if you're looking for champions that go well with the Ezreal, 1,000 looking very strong on that pick, but actually is going to get taken away here. Not going to get that Ezreal again this game. You're going to see it on the other side in game 2. Yeah, not wanting to deal with that Braum Ezreal combo. Those Qs proccing that passive from the Braum. Oh, but we're getting the Zillion for the mid lane and the Lilia here, probably for the jungle, potentially for the top lane. But a much different look here out of the side of Lafayette.
Yeah, this is an interesting comp. Very unorthodox in the way of kind of being able to sleep teams and revive people and get off a little extra stunts here and there, but I love it. It's so, um, daunting if you are on the enemy team because it becomes that you have to worry about so many things. They're really just stacking, um, you know, troublesome causes on the side of the generals that if Thomas Nelson Gaming don't draft for, they're gonna have difficult time trying to deal with all of the little gimmicks that essentially come out from this Lafayette General squad.
Yeah, you're thinking about trying to catch this Ezreal. I can only imagine a Lilia, it's just on her own, moves so fast. You get a speed buff from the Zillion on top of
Oh
that as
no.
well. That is going to be a fast Lilia who's just going to be prancing around the battlefield, putting people to sleep. We are going
Could
to see
even
that
get a
Vic.
Cloud Soul.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Viego and the Malphite being taken off the table. They don't want to deal with
Ooh,
either of those picks here in this
such
game.
great bands.
Yeah, I
Really
like
taking
this.
away some points of power from the game previous there. Darius going to be donated to the other side of the map now. It's going to be the Thomas Nelson squad getting a chance to pilot the Noxian threat himself, but more slows and more stuns possibly getting locked here with the Ash Braum, two
Yeah,
frost firers down there that would love to be paired up together.
that
And
is a
it's
lot
gonna
of
be
CC.
yeah, but it's low damage, you know, on the end,
Mhm.
on the grand scheme of things, the Zillion and Lilia will be able to be MR'd out of the situation. Ash, one of the lower damage AD carries, and with that Mundo getting locked in, it will be relatively low damage to come out, but so frustrating to play against. If the generals are able to do what they want to do and get away with things, they are going to have so much success with this comp that they've drafted. The Trundle, though, an amazing counter pick, going to take away so many stats from that main tank and really make it difficult for the side of the generals in a team fight. That's going to be a massive threat.
Yeah, this is scary. You kind of mentioned it a lot, like very low damage here on the side of Lafayette. We're gonna have to see quite a bit of damage, I think, coming out from the Lilia and the Ash here and the Zillion as well. Um, but that makes them quite squishy, and there are some people on the side here of Thomas Nelson that could blow them up. Also throwing down the gauntlet a little bit and saying, "Hey, that Darius, that Ezreal, a couple of champions that you played in the last game, we can pilot those as well." Taking those away.
I love it. The call outs are hot in the Kentucky Lowell scene. We're getting into it. The countdown will hit. We'll get our small 3-minute spectator bug, and we'll sit on the edge of our seats waiting the entire time because the two teams that have been drafted here are explosive, fun to watch. The Zillion going to provide so much utility for his team as well as just bombs time and time again that will hopefully find their way onto that back line there. Very small back line of the Victor and Ezreal. Besides that, it's some beefy teammates running at your face. The Swain support as well, going to get so many stacks of the Ravens with the Braum support, going to be able to really bully that close range option that has been locked in by the generals. And we'll be able to at least get his passive up quite a bit.
Yeah, if the side of Lafayette is able to get ahead here early in the game, I feel like it's going to be so hard for Thomas Nelson to do anything. They're never going to be able to keep this Lilia or the Mundo off of them. And also finding picks against that Zillion can just be so hard because he's always keeping alive that one person that you're trying to burst down. So I think that this early lead is going to mean a lot for Thomas Nelson.
Mundo getting low and popping his ultimate, though, kind of baiting the team into going for him, could make Zillion kind of have a lot of people that he has to keep his mind on at all times. It's going to be very difficult, is what I guess I'm trying to say for the Zillion to try to find a good time to ultimate. The Mundo's going to be trying to regenerate. The Lilia, I'd assume, is who he's going to try to supplement the most due to just that true dive nature that the character can be unleashed with as the movement speed begins to stack, as the spells all begin to continue to layer up with those cooldown buffs that she got. And it's just a lot of things that the Zillion is going to have to be very quick on in order to get the full utilization out of his kit. Whereas on the other side of things, Thomas Nelson are really just point and click. Exactly what they want to do. They can make it happen. They don't have these, you know, very quick characters that they're gonna have to try to keep up with or anything like that. The Trundle is gonna be able to subjugate that window and really just reap so many stats from him as he will be going full tank, and it's gonna be interesting to see how that all those interactions do play out.
Yeah, I do want to see if the bot lane of Lafayette can make anything happen in the early game. That is a pretty strong lane there with the Ashe and the Braum. You know, if Swain steps too far forwards, he only has that strong amount of damage when those abilities are up. And if he gets caught out too far forward, he is going to be slowed and CC'd forever. And Ezreal not having a ton of damage early either. So there might be a potential for a lane kill there.
Probably see a bush camp level 1 and then just an auto push level 2 to keep this Ezreal always threatened from the Braum shields, always uh, underneath the threat of just getting dove underneath the tower from some sweet spot Lilia W's, and that, just beautiful little jungler just prancing right away as
Mm-hmm.
that kill has been taken care of. And it's just so many things, like I'm saying, that both teams are gonna have to keep their mind on. I just am very thankful that we've gotten these great drafts where nobody truly has an edge just off the draft. Nobody has an edge off the first 5 minutes in a lane. Like, they're really gonna have to fight for everything that they want.
Absolutely. And that starts with the level 1 plays here. I would actually love to see Lafayette try and make a level 1 play happen here. I think they have a pretty strong advantage in that level 1 fight with the Mundo throwing cleavers, the slows from the Ashe, the Braum passive. They have a lot of tools to deal with that level 1 fight if they can potentially find somebody out here. And also potentially get some vision on this Trundle in the early game because his ganks early are strong. You do not want to, have him come out of a bush where you're not expecting him and get pillared and then, take a couple of chomps.
This is so off topic, but we had one little minute before we jump onto the rift, and what was that? The augment where you could get an item or loot every time you cast an ability.
30 seconds.
What was that?
Oh,
Do you remember the Zillion top lane with that?
it was
the Zillion?
Kleptomancy.
Kleptomancy.
Yeah, that was wild. I remember that
Klepto
Victor
Zillion
top
builds.
era, yeah, where he would just take Klepto and Ezreal would take it too. Yeah, they wanted to get rid of that. I remember getting the fortitude pots early from poking that with that. Yeah,
I loved it.
It was a strong mythic a strong keystone mastery for sure.
Those were the times, man. There's been so many generations of some broken things making their way onto the rift, and right now I would honestly beg to say it is one of the most balanced time between the 162 character roster, where a lot of things feel very viable. A lot of opportunities feel like they can be made for the team if they're played around and given the respect that they're due. So here we go, starting things off. Very respectful opening here to game 2, just like we saw in game 1. And everybody's going to be able to just take time to keep comms hot and get ready for what's going to ensue here as the second minute is encroached upon.
Yeah, we're seeing that tier start from both the Zillion and the Ashe, so probably trying to keep it chill for the first little while in this game while we get those stacked up. I'm guessing we'll see the Muramana. I'm curious what the Ashe build here is going to be. We saw an interesting build here out of 1,000 in the last game. Not going the attack speed here, just looking to poke with that volley here with the Arcane Comet.
Yeah, this isn't TFT. That Ashe isn't going to be looking to build static ship with that tier, so interesting to see what the item will eventually be. It's huge flash to come out from Wafflehammer there, and yeah, that's going to get pinged out by the generals. Would have been a massive advantage to start to build, but I don't think it would have even mounted into a kill, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that the damage would have been there due to the Braum being able to get his body in the way of a lot of those Ezreal Qs. So I'm very curious to know what was kind of going through the mind of Waffle there. Seemed a little bit maybe like just to be threatening, just to try to force out a flash on the other side of things as well, but I don't think it would have translated into a kill.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. Trundle is pathing down towards that bottom side, so they could have potentially been trying to burn a couple of summoners for when the lane bounces back their way and the Trundle is down there. because if somebody doesn't have a flash against that Trundle, you are going to be in some trouble.
Those pillars can be so dangerous. You want to stay away from the walls, specifically when you think that Trundle will be coming to your area. He's able to put those pillars against walls and do so many disruptive things with that pillar of ice. So going to be really important that everybody keeps in mind on their positioning in the lane, not just for harassment and trade sakes, but for this Trundle who will be able to put that frozen tundra underneath him and gain that movement speed to close gaps a lot quicker than you'd expect.
Absolutely. Kind of seeing a similar start here to the second game as we did in that first game, where it was kind of slow. Both teams just wanting to get to those initial power spikes before making anything happen. So the Lilia snowball rolling down the lane there. This isn't going to amount to too much, but just letting Thomas Nelson Gaming that she is thinking about that bot lane.
I've seen a Dark Harvest Lilia do some dirty things with that ball that continues forever, but yeah, for now, just gonna be the threat and the pressure and the thought that has to continue to run through the Thomas Nelson Gaming's side that, okay, remember that Lilia can be anywhere, even if she's not there. She could roll the ball up through the river right now and make it to mid lane, but as I say that, the flash is coming out from this Braum. Unfortunately, the minion doing all the work that Thomas Nelson needs, and that is a great use of the W by the Swain to just continue to add pressure. All members of the Lafayette Generals blinking here in the bot lane.
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate play there. Both of these supports trying to make things happen with their flashes and just not able to. That bot lane, if Thomas Nelson could hold those creeps right in front of their tower and try and start a freeze here, to see whether they do that. This is a question for you just because I don't know the answer. Do you know if Lilia ult has a range requirement, or if she throws a snowball all the way down a lane, is she able to ult off of that?
No, there is an actual radius around her in which she's able to cast that sleep. So yeah, no, not a global sleep. That would be one of the best things to draft that character for sure. But you know, even though they did add that little limitation, it is a really big area at that, so she can really come into a lane from a little bit away and start to add that pressure if she's kind of cheating in that way, cheating the base, if you will.
We mentioned it last game. Sir Jubes was kind of taking some pressure in the top lane on that Ornn, but was still able to kind of make some impact in the later game. It's happening here as well. This Darius having that pressure in the lane. Let's see whether Sir Jubes can yet again weather the storm and move through that.
Darius in a little trouble here, though. Yeah, I think that he has to back out from this. If those cleavers start to connect and the ultimate comes out from the Mundo, I think that he could have got the kill in response, regardless of the bleed, regardless of the Conqueror. But yeah, gonna see the Forge God back up for the time being. Has mounted a great lead, and interesting that the team is gonna push this as they are weak side on the top, but there could be a teleport play to come out here on the Dragon. Will Sir Jubes and team go for it now? It looks like the Ocean Drake just sneakily taken in transition there, and nobody on the General's wise to it until they just got that notification that it's too late.
Yeah, and that's a great one to have early. You can see all the members of Thomas and Nelson holding on to those health potions, and they're going to have a lot of sustain as that Ocean Dragon ticks each time. I'm not sure what our second dragon is here. We are dealing with that same spectator bug where it just shows it's an Ocean Drake. Can't get those two Ocean Drakes in a row here.
Going to be important to see if it's a Cloud Drake for the side of the Generals. I know that they would love to see that. Full stacks onto this Mundo, and that is first blood if I've ever seen it. The Dunk Master staying true to his name and cutting through the stats that were built up by Sir Jubes here in the opening moments. But in response, here's the Lilia with the gank pathing onto this bot lane, going to get the kill onto the second one to start things off. The flash from the Swain, very optimistic because the follow-up is here. They're trying to get this Ashe in range for the kill, but have to unfortunately donate over to the Braum due to the threat that was on top of this AD carry.
Yeah, but a great return play there. It looked like Sir Jubes could have actually just walked away from that and burned the flash, but was trying to make that fight happen when that dunk came through. All that true damage. It's a lot.
And it's Mercury treads now, so the speed that you have to be respectful of from DeForge God, even more so having to be played around by this Mundo. If DeForge God is able to get the inside track onto this Mundo, there is just going to be Farmer Darius up here in the top lane, continuing to just mow down this, unfortunately, you know, squishy character that's been drafted. When there's no stats behind this Mundo, he only has life generation to lean upon with that ultimate. Once that's gone, or once some grievous wounds are got by DeForge God, even just the smallest purchase of it, it's gonna just do so much work at nullifying this Mundo pick. And then on top of that, the Trundle could just take all this tank stats when those start to get built up. So just an amazing draft here from Thomas Nelson. They've really made this so difficult for the generals to try to find answers if we get to that mid-late game and there's already a lead for the red team.
Yep. Bot lane playing safe there. Looks like they were about to get engaged on, so they just burn the Ashe ult. You know, make sure to stay safe when the jungler's not around. Respect that cooldown on the Ashe ult coming up very shortly. It's usually about a 60-second cooldown, so you don't feel too bad about tossing that one out. But the Ezreal is quite ahead here in farm. 25 farm up. Definitely a little bit scary.
The reworked Mundo definitely having a lot of quality of life buffs in these types of matchups, able to stay unapprehendable in a lot of these exchanges. But speaking of apprehension, there's gonna have to be a flash out from this Zilly acting silly in this bottom side of the mid lane. There is a simple sweeper to sweep out Vision as well, trying to continue pressure here in the mid lane, allowing this Victor so much space to try to continue to ramp up. But speaking of ramping up, DeForge God is doing just that, and that's why we're seeing the cross map having to come out, flash from the Ezreal. Keep him safe.
Yeah, and the Lilia here doing exactly what we mentioned she was going to have to do. Get ahead here, start building up that damage. Get out on the map early here. Let's get rooted up here. Takes a decent amount of damage. Braum will be there to stop any further damage from coming in. We will push out that lane safely and get that reset.
Taking a break from these amazing lane interactions and looking at the vision across the mini-map. Look at the absolute dominance in the bot side of the map that Thomas Nelson Gaming have. They don't really have any deep vision, but just full picture of exactly what is going on here around the Dragon Pit, what's going on towards the bottom side for the Victor. And that's why we're seeing this small gold lead being edged out in the CS, in top lane, and in this bot wave here. It's just so much safety and reliance that the team is able to lean back upon here. Going to be so important for this Ashe to stay relevant in the damage items. As we've talked about it time and time again, the generals are a little bit lacking in that department.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising also seeing the Ashe go this more utility kind of poke build when they are lacking some of that damage, which just means that more of that is going to have to come out from the Lilia and from this Zillion, who is farming incredibly well on a champion that isn't super easy to farm on until those bombs start doing a lot more damage.
Yeah, usually now is when we see that Zillion try to catch up to that 10 CS a minute, but the work has already been done on the side of Metro Mina. Definitely been a power point for the Generals squad. First on the Syndra pick, and now Sir Jubes unfortunately under threat again. We said that this would be this experience for the... Oh, yo, this man going crazy. The Forge God is going to flash right into this thing. The Zillion ulti is on, though. And so it's going to be so imperative for him to wait, and he does wait it out long enough. Killing spree on the Forge God. Will the bleed still kill? It's going to still kill!
That is 3 for the Darius, and that is awful if you are the Generals. That is going to be a massive Darius, a champion that is so hard to kill when he's ahead, so hard to get away from. Looks like he is going towards that stride breaker as well, so he is going to have so much, and he has the stride breaker, yep, from taking all 3 of those kills. Yeah, he's going to be so hard to get away from if you are the Mundo here. all that movement speed from that stride breaker, making him
I think
a
that
terrible threat.
I think the impact quote was top die, but that was team die coming out from the Forge guy, just taking every single fight that came his way, flashing right onto the Zillion to just continue to put so much pressure. And now the Rift Herald is accelerating and opening up this mid lane here for the team. But what a great response kill to come out from Metro Mina. Leads the Zillion to get gold, and that is gold got.
Absolutely. See that Hextech Drake going over to Thomas Nelson as well. Trying to see what kind of soul we've got cooking here. Won't be that ocean yet again. We'll have to see. I haven't seen any signs of the map. Oh, the Ashe ult is coming out here onto the Ezreal. Is going to combo into that Braum ult, and Lilia is here. She is fast enough. Is going to take that kill on the Ezreal and run towards this Swain. No ult available though.
Every single time they're trying to donate kills to this Ashe to get her up to speed, but it's like so much threat onto 1,000, not able to get the last hit, so they have to unfortunately get it onto somebody else. Chemtech Drake will be sold, in which we go onto here, so some great healing and shielding buffs across the team. If the soul is able to be attained, it will be I believe that 50% damage, oh no, 20% damage buff under 50%, or I'm not sure exactly.
10% damage buff and damage decrease when you're below 50.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, a lot of effective stats coming out when you're below that 50% mark, which would be incredible if you're on the side of Lafayette, where you're able to, you know, abuse that Zillion ult to kind of like, you know, stay below that 50% mark. It's going to make them really hard to actually kill you. And the Mundo ultimate, of course, but they're going to have to get 4 copies of that dragon in order to get that.
Which means they need a lot of either outplay or a great pace set from here on out. And as of right now, it's just been the Thomas Nelson Gaming highlight reel in the top lane. Nobody even having kill credit, nobody even having opportunity to get in the fray of things besides this Trundle, because Darius just taking things over in the top lane. I'd be very interested to see what the response is here from Lafayette. Would you say that it's best to ditch the Darius and try to get some 4v5s on the other side of the map, then go for the Darius? Or does that leave him just getting too large and denying resources from the Mundo that you won't ever be able to basically 5v5?
Yeah, it's tough. I do think that they will want to collect that bounty on the Darius at some point, but he already has so much MR that I'm not sure if it's going to be able to happen from that top side of the map. And we're seeing also the Ashe go more of a supportive build, building towards that Imperial Mandate here and the Muramana, which is a very strong build, but yet again, it's speccing into more magic damage here. So that Darius already itemizing so heavily into that MR, like you mentioned, having those treads and the Hex Drinker built already here.
Yeah, and he'll be able to sit on the Hex Drinker as well. It's not like going to the mall adds that much more value to your kid. I mean, for the Darius, you do get those percent missing health AD, I believe, but in general, just going to be wanting to sit on that Hex Drinker, use the gold efficacy towards something else moving forward. So possibly a Triforce still to come out, possibly could see some Shred as well, future-proofing this build that he's already established in this lead that he's already cemented, but only time will tell. For now, it's a great rotation early to the Dragon by this Darius. It's going to be Mundo able to catch up some resources in the top and possibly lend a TP in the aid of his team, but I think they're just going to give this one away and possibly look to fight on the Soul after having scaled up a bit more.
Yeah, the Ashe is a little bit behind here. Has a couple of those components picked up. The Forge God is going in with the Ghost, is going hard on this Zillion, who's going to try and put out some CC here. Is going to get under the turret with the ult, is going to have that popped by the Darius. Bleed, I believe. Yep, does revive with half health. Lilia ulting on this.
No, wait, hold up. Are we seeing the Imperial Mandate? Or the... What is this Ashe build?
It's definitely Imperial Mandate. Yeah.
Where's the AD carry?
Yeah, it's like I mentioned earlier. Yeah, there isn't going to be a whole lot of attack damage coming out from the side of Lafayette. It's such a gold efficient build that I understand the thought process behind going it when you're a little bit behind. It costs, like, it's so cheap and you get such good value out of it. And you just poke forever, but it's mostly magic damage coming out from that mandate, like you mentioned. Alright, we'll get out of the way of that Ezreal ult, and we'll not take a death here on 1,000. As behind as 1,000 is, at least... Oh, I was going to say, doing such a good job of staying alive, but that flash ignite coming out of Waffle will spell doom for that Ashe. But yeah, when you're thinking about it, I don't know how they ever really deal with this Darius without having some attack damage threat. Maybe if that Ashe was going to go like a Blade of the Ruined King and a Kraken Slayer or something, you might have the tools to, shred down that tank, but it's going to be hard. They're going to have to rely on kiting this Darius for a really long time with things like the Everfrost from the Zillion, the speed boosts, and then all of the CC they have coming out from that bot lane.
And they are able to pick up a Rift Herald there as well, so going to be possible cross map that happens as that Ocean Timer on this Chemtech Drake, I'm sorry, does actually spawn, but all around great stuff. They're actually just gonna drop it from the beginning of things and just make things happen here in the mid lane, blowing up turret number 1 with that Rift Herald, and it even gets its second charge off on the second turret. This will be an opportunity here for this bounty to be taken away from the Forge God. So much lifesteal, but they're able to power through it. The Zillion going to get that shutdown so huge. Possible another kill to come out onto Wildfire, and it will. Perfect opportunity here for the Lafayette Generals to mount an insane comeback. They've already closed that mountain of gold that was closing up on them, and they're able to possibly weather the storm of this Ezreal ulti. Everyone will survive.
Yeah, and they do use all of their utility to get that bounty on the Darius, which is huge for them. That's a lot of gold in their pocket. Now, we are seeing that there is a path here for them to win in some of these fights with all of the CC and all of the utility they have in these fights.
The Purifier and Everfrost in the inventory of this Zillion will be providing so much to the team here in the coming moments. 1 minute and 45 seconds on to what will be the Chemtech sole opportunity for Thomas Nelson Gaming. Will they be able to secure it, or will the Generals have finally figured out what they need to do in order to win? That was a very aggressive position by the Forge God. Very open opportunity that the Generals were able to see. I hope that this top laner does not make that mistake again for his team's sake, because it could spell imminent doom if these Chemtech Drakes start to stack. You mentioned it before. That Zillion just doing so much to keep people at that perfect threshold to fully utilize what that Drake has to offer. Enchanted Crystal Arrow going wide in the mid lane, trying to just slow down the Ezreal. Possibly would have liked to see that save, but I think it should be up before this minute's over.
Yeah, you can see already a third of its cooldown is out of the way here.
Half. Wow.
Yeah, it is such a low cooldown with this build. You get so much CDR.
Is it possibly Ultimate Hunter as well with those assists that were picked up? So a lot of extra stacks going onto that Ultimate Hunter if that was picked up by 1,000.
Yeah, and I like this from the Generals. You want to make sure that you make it to this Drake early. You need that poke coming out from the Ashe. You need the poke coming out from the bombs. It's just a one-on-one, like a full-on fight. I think that they are at a disadvantage here, unless they get some insane Lilia ult, which does have flash and has both of the drain items completed, or both of the burn items rather. So they have the tools here, but they're going to have to get this dragon, because I don't think they deal with a Swain and a Trundle and a Darius with that Chemtech soul.
Stopwatch still not completed on the Lilia as well, so she does have to be a bit respectful. We'll have the Zillion ult if that is needed, but for the time being, the fight has broken out. The wall has been laid, and the damage is coming out so much from Thomas Nelson. Will the team by Lafayette be able to respond? No way! This Darius is so big, and even though the Zillion bombs are able to stun the approach, the coming onslaught from Thomas Nelson Gaming, what a massive blast cone! Those are the Chemtech buffed blast cones, and that's why you're seeing the Forge God get so much distance and gets to go crazy on the double kill.
Yeah, and there was an opportunity there for Lafayette. That was a giant Lilia ult, but they really had to extend that fight longer and not take that full brunt of that Darius. Also, Zilean, unfortunately dying with his ult up, wasn't able to find a target for that in that fight. Was that Darius ult doing so much damage, it's so hard to know who he's going to be executing in those situations.
I mentioned it's very difficult for Metro Minen to keep tabs on. I kind of preluded to that in the analysis that we had pre-game, that there's so many people moving, so much people that you have to keep an eye on when you have this many carries that you want to care about as the Zilean. And you also have to still remember yourself at the end of the day. Like, you are an important part of this team. So 22-minute soul collected by Thomas Nelson Gaming, that is one massive buff given to the team. And on top of that, they have translated it into a Baron. The Generals have to weather a category 5 hurricane in order to come out of this, and that's only to come out with a 10,000 gold deficit.
Yeah, all of the players on Thomas Nelson also understanding that they've spec so hard into magic damage on the side of the Generals. You can see Mongongo picking up that Banshee's Veil, getting that magic resist for himself. See some more coming out from the Simple Sweeper as well. Oh, they are going to try and make a pick heal up here on Waffelheimer. Lilia trying to make something happen in the bot lane. No lives will be lost here. But that's that Chemtech Soul coming into play on that Swain. You just can't kill him. That damage reduction, so strong.
Has the Rylai's as well, and the Pen Boots, so this Swain is also just gonna start freaking hurting. You gotta watch out. This man is very farmed. His passive is up. He's able to be very aggressive in lane, and things are just stacking all over the place for Thomas Nelson's squad. And speaking of stacking, the Dead Man's Plate now fully picked up. That's a 3-item Chemtech Soul Darius that's level 16. That's a problem.
That is the definition of a problem. You could open up a dictionary and go to problem, and it would just be Darius with these 3 items. The side of Lafayette, they do have a lot of wave clear. Oh, what a great pillar walking off the escape here. Looks like all of the members here. Oh, they do actually only get the Ash. They are trying to fight back here. With that Chemtech Soul offering so much time for Thomas Nelson to, you know, back up when things start getting hairy for them.
Providing so much utility to this Trundle as well. I mean, heals galore. Just gonna want to move around and continue to become this threat, the Subjugate. Gonna also just provide so much additional healing now. And you know, I really can't see a way that the Thomas Nelson game went wrong here. They just did everything that they needed to and more. Such a very dangerous position for the Forge God to put himself in here, trying to put Sir Jubes under the ringer. Bait him into this fight where he's gonna have this mob pop and all this extra stats, but on the other side of things, it's a 1-3-1 that's being just so rewarded here by the Thomas Nelson squad. They are taking mid inhibitor, they're taking top tower. Victor on the bot lane, getting and breaking into the base.
Yeah, the Ash Poke finally starting to come through here with that completed Mirror Mana and the Mandate. But it might be a little bit too late. So much healing on the side of Thomas Nelson are just going to be able to sustain through that poke. And they are taking everything on the map.
Taking everything on the map and making a name for themselves in doing so. This has been some great stuff. I'm not sure where things have gone from here, but we're going to get right back into this gameplay. Just a small pan over the delicious, nutritious riff that we have been able to enjoy this afternoon with you all. Osti Champ and Locust on the mic. So excited to see where things are going here in best of 3 here. Game 2 looking very close to a Thomas Nelson Gaming win if they're able to keep this pressure.
Absolutely. The Elder Dragon here coming up in a minute's time. The inhib down in the base of Lafayette. it is going to be hard for them to get out and try and go for a potential steal on this. I can't imagine they'll be able to fight Thomas Nelson head on with that 10k gold lead.
Level 12 Ash being chased down by level 17 to Forge God. Absolute travesty. If you are that 80 carry, you are so terrified to even approach any type of area that this Darius occupies. He has Flash, he has Ghost, has the Dead Man's Plate as well. Just so many opportunities, and the Stride Breaker too. You gotta remember that movement. Just so many opportunities for this Darius to get where he wants to be. Victor left alone in the top lane to his own devices. A little bit of a scary place for Victor to occupy, but the Flash apprehend to come out from the Forge God, not trying to waste any time.
Oh, and it looks like I can't even tell whether the damage from that ult went off because he kind of got slept in the air. Is so tanky though. Just sustained through this fight, and it doesn't look like any of the members on the side of Thomas Nelson is going to end up dropping. Yeah, that Chemtech Soul keeping everybody below that half health mark so healthy. And it looks like they are going to go for the Nexus here. Not even going to bother with the Elder Dragon. It's not needed. Victor pushing the creeps in that mid lane.
It was a textbook wallet slap right by the Dragon Pit. 12,000 gold, just so difficult to overcome in relation to stats that it provides. Just so many added bonuses to the characters here of Thomas Nelson Gaming, and that's why we're seeing them now siege the final moments of this Nexus here in Game 2.
And they are just going to shred through Sir Jude's. Ash Arrow comes out, but it isn't going to stop them. Darius is going to drop. Took a couple too many tower shots. Going to try and push Thomas Nelson back here. All these low health members, are they actually in any danger? Chemtech Soul doesn't look like it, and this Trundle is going to go massive, chomping on everybody from the team of Lafayette Generals. Thomas Nelson knowing their limit, and will be taking this set 2-0.
2-0 in very close, but at the end there, very convincing fashion from the squad. The Simple Sweeper, Waffleheimer, Mongogo, the second one, and the Forge God MVP in my book there of the set. Just amazing performance. So thankful to the Kentucky High School Activities Association for just making this happen, putting these esport athletes on the stage of which they were allowed to perform on today, and giving us that show, because just hats off to them. An amazing performance. And at the end of the day, it's going to be Thomas Nelson Gaming walking away with that big dub.
Yeah, huge shout-outs to both of those teams. It was such a great set. And a huge shout-outs to PlayVS for, allowing these things to happen and for facilitating them, because it's been great to see all of these teams perform at such a high level.
Absolutely, man. I'm so thankful I got that front row seat right next to my man Locust. If you enjoyed his commentary, if you enjoyed the man Austin Champ, make sure you reach out to us on socials. Stay followed up with PlayVS on everything that they're doing, still providing the top of the line of collegiate and high school level gaming for these athletes. And besides that, we are going to sign off. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. See you all at the next broadcast.